Tail hedge your net worth with magic internet money.
It's February 2020, and Bitcoin just broke $10,000 again. I recorded this episode a few months back near the end of 2019 with fellow Bitcoin podcast host Peter McCormack. Before I started the podcast, Peter was actually very helpful. He was one of the people on Twitter who gave me some good actionable tips and recommendations for gear to use. And then he actually went beyond the call of duty and recorded part of the podcast intro for me. So you've been hearing Peter McCormack on every single episode of Magic Internet Money so far. He's the guy at the beginning that says, "Do not attempt to HODL without doing your research first." It's a short episode, but before we get into it, I just have to read you a message from today's sponsor.
The world not the way it used to be. No.
The Magic Internet Money Podcast is brought to you by Rogers Fork Emporium. Big forks, little forks, freedom forks. Fork your mother if you want fork. Rogers Fork Emporium is proud to introduce the tax fork. Are you tired of all your food getting into your mouth? Now with Roger Ver's Very Taxi Fork, each fork comes strapped with a Class 3 firecracker that vaporizes 12.5% of all organic matter near the blast radius. Go to fork.lol and enter the code word CASH. That's CAAAAAAASH. Roger Ver's forks are perfect for everyone listening to this podcast. Use it while seasteading. Bring it with you to Anarchapulco for protection against libertarians. Works great in prison and can be used to scratch your name onto expatriation documents. Don't forget to subscribe to Roger Forks Emporium. There's a new fork every 6 months. And if you don't like it, you can fork off. All right, that was a strange ad. Well, as always, thanks for listening to the podcast. And please, if you like the show, leave me a review and share the podcast with your friends. It helps a lot.
What am I going to do? My bucket!
Brad Mills is a partner at Xsquared Ventures. All opinions expressed by Brad and his guests do not reflect the opinions of Xsquared Ventures or Xsquared Management. Investing in cryptocurrencies is high risk and you can get wrecked. Do not treat any opinion expressed on this show as investment advice, but only as an expression of Brad's opinion. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Do not attempt to HODL without doing your research first.
The world not the way it used to be. No.
Peter McCormack, welcome to the Magic Internet Money Podcast.
Thank you.
I got to say thank you for encouraging me to start this podcast. You were one of the folks that kept encouraging me to start the podcast through Twitter.
Well, I'm glad you did it.
And I'm sure you've done that to a lot of people, eh? You seem to be the guy that helps everybody out whenever they ask questions.
Yeah, if someone wants to do it, I just say do it. It's so interesting, so many ways. There's a bunch of people who see my income reports, right? And they're like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. And they're driven by the money. And I that wasn't the starting point for me. So, that's always going to be tough because it's hard to make money from this stuff. But even if you're not going to make money, there's so much you can get from doing a podcast in terms of gaining knowledge and bullshit stuff like learning about yourself and learning a new skill. But yeah, it's great. I love it.
I would say for people that aren't familiar with Peter, my friends, family, whoever's listening to this, folks, Peter has one of the most successful Bitcoin-themed podcasts. It's called What Bitcoin Did. And I would describe you as kind of like a more interesting version of Tim Ferriss for crypto.
That's very kind of you.
Tim Ferriss is really interesting, obviously, but he doesn't have a cool accent like you.
Well, yeah, but he does to me. Or, I interviewed the other day Matthew Machinsky. I have voice envy with him.
I gotta listen to that one.
Yeah, but you know what it is, right? Everyone who hears their own voice hates it. I hate my voice. Every time I listen back, I'm like, what a fucking idiot. Who listens to that?
Well, the reason why I say that Tim Ferriss is because, and folks might not even know who Tim Ferriss is if they're not entrepreneurs or whatever. He's the author of The 4-Hour Workweek, The 4-Hour Body, 4-Hour Chef. He has a really successful podcast. But you're like a polymath. You try a lot of different things. You are interested in a bunch of different subjects. And you're a very hard worker. You're traveling all the time. You're flying all over the world for your podcast. And you're very open for people to talk to. And you're very open with what you've learned and your process and your numbers. Like you just said, you share your numbers of your show. And that's something that Tim Ferriss did really well and got a lot of respect and followers because he was like an open book for anybody to just see how his process works. And he gave so much good information and real numbers to back up, his lessons learned and stuff. did you take inspiration from him? Like, what made you want to start sharing everything?
Well, there's a couple of things there. There's the like transparency and the numbers, because they're two separate things. So the numbers thing actually came from, there's a couple of podcasts, Smart Passive Income and Entrepreneurs on Fire, the John Lee Dumas one. Both I've listened to at different times, and both on their website have income reports. And so when I got my first couple of checks in from what Bitcoin did, I thought, right, I'll track this and I will just provide it like transparency, do the income reports for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I put some pressure on myself, to deliver. When I had a company previously, I used to have my advertising agency, we had a board, right? So every month you would have the board that you would have to answer to and show what you've done. I didn't have anyone to answer to with the podcast. So I thought if I just made it public, I'd have to do that. And secondly, just Bitcoin is full of so many scammers and such bullshit. I was just like, look, here's the numbers. And if anyone wants to have a go at me or say I'm being paid off by anyone, I'll say, well, look, the best I can do is be transparent and hope you trust me. So that was that. And then in terms of being just like an open book and transparent about everything else, I don't know. I was just, again, when I launched my advertising agency, we decided to try and launch that as a transparent business. So when we built the first website, it was a to-do list of launching a business. And what we did is we kind of tick things off on the website as we did them, and the website kind of took shape. And I don't know, I've always liked that transparent side of things. It doesn't feel natural for people, but when you do it yourself, most people, it's like fake it till you make it kind of stuff. But actually, I've found if you're really transparent and open, honest about your mistakes, honest about what you're trying to do, people kind of enjoy following the story and will support you. And all you have to deal with then is just like a minority of morons. But you're going to deal with morons anyway. So in this way, I think the upside's worth it. So yeah, I'm fully, more than happy to be transparent. It's kind of funny though, because then what happened was the numbers obviously got quite good at some one point. So that came with its own kind of pressures and bullshit. But yeah, I advise anyone to try and consider doing everything they can as transparently as they can handle, because I think it's got far more upside than downside.
So it's something that you used to do then with your ad agency, and even before,
Yeah.
it was like a tool that you could use to separate yourself from everybody else.
There's this magazine called Creative Review, and what happened was they did an issue where the front cover was their to-do list for delivering that issue, and I just thought that's so fucking cool. So it just came from that, and I've always kind of stuck with it.
That's funny because that's kind of like a strategy that a friend of mine used as well in the Facebook game business. When did you have your advertising company? When was that?
So that ended about 5 years ago, but I had it for about 8 years.
Okay. So I was in the game space around 8 years ago as well, pretty heavily into that. And a friend of mine in Toronto had a game company as well. So we have these internal stats that you have, like lifetime value of a customer and a cost per acquisition of a customer. And these are all these metrics you use in valuing your game and the players of your game and how successful it is. And it was kind of like something that was taboo. Like you don't want to tell everybody that's playing your game like how you think about them because you're afraid they'll revolt on you. And the other guys decided, well, we're just going to be totally transparent. We're going to tell everybody this is how much we pay our staff. This is how much you guys are worth to us, and try to share the game for us so that we can increase the amount of people playing so that we can hire more people and make the game better. And it actually worked well for them. And I remember we were sitting in a meeting when we were kind of like at a conference having breakfast, and they were like, you know what, we're just going to be totally radically transparent. And I was like, oh my God, I could never do that with my game. I think my players would revolt. Why do you think people have that reaction? Like, I can't open the Komodo, I can't show people.
I think there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's just fear, right? It's just fear of opening yourself up because you're open to criticism. That's one of the things. Also, you're kind of giving away trade secrets. Like, you can tell a lot about, if you go through my income report, you can see the actual downloads per show. So you can see the guests which get the best downloads or the show types. You can probably figure out my rates for my advertising from it. People are scared about giving information away, and also like people are competitive, right? And don't get me wrong, look, I'm competitive as fuck. I want to win. I don't even let my kids win at Monopoly or anything. I absolutely want to destroy them, because I grew up with my dad never let me win anything. The first time I beat him at pool, I was about 17, and golf, I didn't beat him at golf till I was in my late 20s, but it made me work harder to win it, right? He just didn't let me win. And so I'm the same, and I'm really competitive. I try not to be like, because you can be quite negative if you're competitive. It can make you do negative things. But whilst I'm competitive, I kind of want everyone else to win. So I want to win, but I want everyone else to do well. Like if other people want to do a podcast and do a Bitcoin podcast, I'm not like, oh no, here's another one. It's more competition. I'm like, great, let's grow Bitcoin. And I'm still going to try and be, one of the best ones out there or one of the biggest ones. And, the other podcasters I talk to, and I won't name names because it's unfair on them because they might not like it, but we talk, we share ideas. Like if any of the other podcasters come to me and say, what are you doing, Pete? How do you do it? I'll share it all. I don't care because I think we can all win. Yeah, I think most people are just kind of fearful of what it means.
Have you noticed anyone else with a Bitcoin podcast or a crypto podcast start this similar process?
I've certainly noticed some start to use the kind of banners that I do, when I publish a show, those very kind of standout banners that you put onto Twitter. And some people are maybe doing their tweets when they announce a show similar to mine, or doing specials. I started doing those specials. I did the Lightning special, Mt. Cox, other people doing specials. Now, it doesn't mean that they are unique ideas to me. I'm always looking at other podcasters and getting ideas as well. A lot of my ideas, like my show structure, came from a guy called Rich Roll. Stuff I put on my website came from him. So, I got ideas from him. Like, I think you can take ideas from other people, but I'd like to think without it coming across as arrogant in any way that hopefully some of the work I've done has influenced people as other works influence mine.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's the reason why Square invested into BTC Pay Server, because they're trying to grow the entire industry, and then there's a wider pool of people using Bitcoin that's good for Square, even though BTC Pay Server is a competitor.
Like I say, we're trying to grow this industry, right? Plus, the other thing is, like, if you think of it in terms of competition, even if there's more competition, say mine is maybe the most downloaded Bitcoin podcast. I think Trace Mayer probably does more, but he doesn't do many shows. I think Laura Shin might do more, but she's more crypto. But whatever, by the by, I mean, whether it's the most or one of the most, even if you want to have your show have more downloads than me, you can copy ideas, which is cool. I love to like share ideas and other people to do it, but there's so many other factors you've got to try and compete on, like how hard I work, right?
Yeah, that's hard to replicate. That part is really important.
You got to work harder than me. You've got to hustle to get the guests harder than me. So I want more people in the space, and if more people come in and they do a good job, great. That's going to drive me on to do better. But that said, another thing is I don't listen to crypto podcasts anymore. So about, I can't remember when it was, 6 months, 8 months ago, I stopped listening to crypto podcasts because what I found was happening is that I would listen to a Stefan show or a Marty show, and like I would listen every week and it would be influencing me. So they'd have a guest and I'd want the guest. And I was like, I want mine to stand out and be individual. So, like when you were a kid, when you had to do some homework, if you found a book it was in, you would copy the words and you'd be trying to rewrite the words. I didn't want to be like that with the show. So I wanted to just get guests that were independent of everyone else and do everything different. That's not always true. I just listened to Marty's show with Janine, which was brilliant. And what a fucking great show. Like if there's a special show, but otherwise I actually spend most of my time listening to other non-crypto podcasts to learn from them. So I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. Like I've learned stuff about doing ad reads from Joe Rogan. There's another thing Joe Rogan does that's really cool, which I'm trying to bring into mine, is he will have different guests who can be from completely different areas. Like he could have Rob Zombie, Roseanne Barr, and Bill Burr in the space of a week. And, Rob Zombie's a film director and, he was in White Zombie, and Roseanne's like a TV host and Bill Burr's like a stand-up comedian. And yet the narratives of the things he's discussing, like current affairs, they carry through, right? So I'm trying to do a similar thing with my shows. So, right, it's Bitcoin, but I might have like Eric Voskill one week, and then I might have, I don't know, Bitcoin Mom, and then I might have like, whoever. The things I'm discussing and talking about, I'm trying to take from show to show, so it becomes a bit more like a series.
Yeah. It's got to be hard, though, after this many episodes to find a way to continue that, eh? Like to stay in the crypto, like Bitcoin. It's not even crypto. You've kind of like refocused on mostly Bitcoin, if not only Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how many shows in are you now? Like 90 or 100 or something?
155 went live today.
Wow. Okay. So
yeah,
how are you finding it now that you've hustled so hard? Are you finding there's still lots of people to talk to? Or I guess maybe that's why you're talking to me on my show now.
No, dude, there are so many. Like, I mean, I've got a target hit list of people I want to talk to who've never been on. I'm trying to spread out into subjects which touch Bitcoin, but, aren't essentially Bitcoin. So, for example, maybe I'm talking to somebody as a libertarian podcast, or I'll talk to someone about gun rights. I'm trying to expand the topics into things that Bitcoiners are interested in. I really enjoyed my interviews with Andrew Polstra, but I don't want to talk about Taproot and things like that because, firstly, I've got no idea what the hell he's talking about. And Stefan Rivera can do a better job of that, or Marty can. I want my show to be more of an entertainment show, more of just a conversation that people can listen to and hear the things that I'm wrestling with, like the issues related to Bitcoin or the sister subjects, like morality things that feel aligned. I want people to hear us discussing that and trying to figure out how this stupid, crazy world works. So no, there's plenty of people left to talk to. And there's also lots of subjects. I have like a spreadsheet of people and subjects I want to cover, and it grows quicker than I can make shows.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your process, and I guess that's a good tip, is make a list of your dream hosts, I guess, your dream guests, I suppose.
Yeah, well, listen, look, I'll tell you everything I do. I use a thing called Agenda, which is just like a note-keeping thing. And in there, I have target guests, people I want to speak to, and I'm always adding to it. Like if I hear of somebody I want to speak to. And so if I open that up now, I'll actually read you from it. So blah, blah, blah. I have a thing to book ASAP, like the people I want to book ASAP. So for example, right now, I've done the show about guns with Ragnar. Now I want to do a show with somebody about who's pro gun control, because I want to hear the other side. So I've got that there. I've got Rodolfo on there because I want to talk to him. I've also got Matt Corello on there because I want to talk to him since he's gone to Square. So they're like a list of people I want to interview. And then I go down to like my topics. I want to do a week of shows with Bitcoin contrarians and talk about, the challenges. I want to do a show about Bitcoin jobs where I talk to people working in the industry and what it's like. I've got a title for a show called Bitcoin Purist, which I'm probably going to do with Rodolfo, where I talk about if you are completely anti-shitcoin and you only want to touch Bitcoin, you want, what exchange you use, what hardware wallet. So that's just a list I keep, and I'm just always taking from that and booking the shows. And then what I do is I have like a big, huge spreadsheet thing. So the first tab's my guest schedule. And in there, I've got like a column for each show. So for now, I can see 155, 156, 157, so on. It says who it is, where they're from, what the theme is, what the category is, what the release date is, whether it's recorded or not, blah, blah, blah. So that's like the schedule. And then I have a guest booking spreadsheet it's got all the guests that I've got booked ahead, when I've got them booked in, what we're going to be talking about, blah, blah, blah. And I've got color coded. So if it's confirmed, it's one color. If it's a conversation I'm having because I haven't got them booked in, it's another color. So I know what I'm doing there. Then I've got my ad schedule. So I have an ad schedule for the ads that are going out on each show. And then I have target guests here, where I've actually got a spreadsheet from Hive One of the people, how many followers they got, what kind of reach they've got. Because, I want to grow my show, and I don't just game the system, because that's super easy actually, by the way. But I do have an interest in kind of knocking off the top 100 in Hive, of which I've done, a good fair amount of. I'd say I've done at least half of them. And then I have my stats. I keep all my stats, like for every show and every channel. So I almost run it like a business. The data is really important for me of knowing what's going on. But yeah, it's a machine. I have a Google Drive set up. Once a show's recorded, it goes up. My engineer engineers it. He sends me back my scripts. I record the scripts. We publish it. It's run like a business.
Like, did you get all this? Because that's a pretty good organizational system you got going there. Did you learn this like in your ad company, or did you read a book to learn how to do this, or did you just figure it yourself?
No, I just figured it out myself. What I first had was just my my schedule of guests. I just had a spreadsheet, because I wanted to keep a record. I just created a record of the guests, so I just had the information there. And then I think the next one I did was my targets. I just put that in there and color coded it.
You didn't get Ian Bellina to make this sheet for you?
No, man, no. It's just one of those things that's built up as I've done it. Like, I'm big on lists and organization. So I want to know what everything is, where the information is. And then just as I've got busy, I've just had to become more organized. And so these are just spreadsheets I've created for myself.
Do you have an assistant helping you with this stuff, or do you just do it mostly yourself?
No, but I've got my engineer/producer who now works full-time for me. And so he does a lot of the organization once the show's recorded, and he does all the publishing to the website. Actually, tomorrow is his first day full-time. So he's been doing it part-time. He'll be doing a lot more for me so I can focus on the interviews.
That's awesome. Congrats. Congrats to him too.
Yep. Thanks to Kraken.
Kraken's one of your sponsors. I imagine they're helping pay for his salary.
Yeah, without them, I couldn't do it. And I think an assistant is something I need, but I'm so picky on the small details. Like, I worry about handing those small bits over to an assistant. So, for example, one thing I'm never going to do is I'm not going to hand over the booking of guests to an assistant. One of the things that works well is that I contact them and I speak to them. I tell them the show I want to make. I think it would be a bit weird if like Safety got an email from some random person saying, "Would you like to come on Peter's show?" I feel like I still need to do that stuff.
I feel like because that's happened to me before, and it happened during the 2017 bull run. I was contacted by like someone's assistant a couple of times to be on a show, and I gotta admit, at first I was like, "Ooh, there's someone that has an assistant that wants me to go on their show. That's cool." But then you think about it, it's like, the personal touch is always going to be better. You're going to most likely have a better shot of having the person say yes if you're the one that's reaching out to ask personally to get on the show.
Well, exactly. Like I always have these PR people getting in touch, like relentlessly trying to pitch people for my show. People have absolute no interest at all. And virtually every single time it's no, I'm just not interested in these PR emails. Occasionally someone gets in touch direct and then I'll have a conversation with them and I'm more inclined to go, okay, maybe you're not right for now. I'll have you in the future, but you got to go with the personal touch here. So there's certain things I'll hand over and certain things I won't.
You have a Patreon. Did you start your Patreon before your show got big?
I started it around the time I started getting my first checks.
Sponsorship checks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it over for you if you want.
Well, I just don't have the time to. I think to do Patreon well, you've got to be creating unique content that they wouldn't get if they weren't on the public site. Right now, it's just they get the show without ads, which is great for some of them, but it's fluctuated and it's also started to die off recently just because I don't have time for it. Now, one of the things that I will be doing is my engineer, that's one of his jobs when he comes full time, is he's going to manage that and we're going to start thinking of unique content that we can create for people. So for example, if I do an interview, I might do like a 10-minute bit at the end where I just ask them some like different kind of stock questions, Pomp and Rogan ask about aliens and shit. So I might just ask them about like what was their favorite album, what was their favorite film, and as a random idea. But if I can't actually do anything decent with the Patreon, then I'll probably get rid of it.
Do you recommend newish podcasters try to focus on the Patreon or try to focus on getting guests and pushing out episodes, or maybe a mix of both?
I think Patreon works once you're established and you've got an audience and you can offer something unique. But the first goal has to be just to get an audience. You need to be getting listeners to your show. And, what is the goal of your show? Is it to make money? Is it to support a company? If it's just to support a company, then you've got some flexibility. If it's to make money, then I don't know. I think Patreon probably comes second. I think you've just got to focus on, like, even like when my Patreon did its best, my best month was like $1,500. It's still only like 5% of my revenue.
You've done really well. With your reports, you can tell how much money you're making. But most people, like $1,500 a month on their crypto podcast, that's probably like what they make in sponsorships, do you think? Or do you think I just have the numbers way off?
No, probably. I think, obviously I used to work in advertising and I know what works and what doesn't. So if you want to advertise to Bitcoiners right now, you got to think, where can you go? You can do display ads on CoinDesk. That's not going to work. You can do Google ads. That's going to be really expensive and wasteful. Facebook ads won't work. Like the podcast is probably the best place to advertise right now because you've got a direct access to Bitcoiners, a captive audience. People generally listen to podcast ads. So you get like 40% listener rates, which is pretty good. You get a personal recommendation from the host and they just tend to work. So you got to think how many companies out there are sponsoring and where's the audience? I think I read somewhere early on that you've got to be like top 3 podcasts within your sector to be getting the ad rates. Otherwise, so that was my target. I was like, I've got to be top 3.
And early on when you weren't top 3, were you still getting ads and getting decent checks from advertisers?
Well, no, because what happened is I wasn't doing it to make money. I was just doing it as like a hobby and a bit of fun. And, I started to take it more seriously when I was getting like 5,000 downloads. But I still wasn't like, I didn't have this goal to make money until somebody came to me and said they wanted to advertise. I think my first check was like $1,500. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting because it was based on a CPM. So I just did the math. I was like, okay, I've got one ad doing that at CPM. Right. So if I can have 4 ads a show, and I can get my downloads up to like 10,000, this is financially what it means. So then the goal was to professionalize it. So then I just kind of flipped and started running it more like a business, taking it a lot more seriously in terms of my organization, getting the best guests.
I remember the moment on Twitter when you were, it was probably, I think it was around the beginning of the bear market. Maybe it was a little later than that, maybe like a few months into the bear market, and you tweeted this thread about how much money you lost on shitcoins.
Yeah.
And then you said you're going to refocus your podcast, and you deleted all your old tweets, and you like rebranded yourself and stuff, and started focusing more on the podcast.
So that thing was misleading because like I've never been down, right? I was down from like a peak, but I was never completely down, right? I only started, my initial investment was like 32,000 or something. Also, from the money I was making on trading, I bought all the equipment and traveled the world making the podcast, right? So it enabled me to do that. I had savings, but I didn't want to wipe out all my savings. I was okay. My backup was like, right, well, if everything goes to shit, I'll just go and get another job in advertising. In my experience, I can get paid well in advertising. But I didn't want to, right? I didn't want to go and get another job. So I was like, right, I've got my first check. I can take this seriously. This is potentially how much money I can make. And so, yeah, and then I just kind of focused on the podcast and doing the best job I could.
Well, that tweet storm that you posted, did you end up deleting that, or do you still have that up?
Yeah, I did, because I just deleted every now and again, I just delete all my old tweets. I had to switch off recently because I got added to that crypto deleted tweets, but
yeah,
which is just annoying. I don't think people should hold on to old tweets. I don't think you need immutable records. Yeah, there's some good threads that have died, but I think it's not healthy to keep all your old tweets because, I mean, especially somebody like me who says so much stupid shit. It's not a good idea for it to stay out there.
I just remembered that tweet was interesting because to me, I think a lot of people at that point shifted the way they thought about you and your show because you were just so honest about your experience. And a lot of people were having the same experience with altcoins. They lost tons of money, like on paper anyways, by dabbling in coins and mining altcoins and all this stuff. And nobody was really sharing the information except maybe Meltem. She had the potato fund. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the potato fund. But you know what it was? So many people kept talking about, in the next bull run. Kept hearing that thing, in the next bull run, I'm going to do this. And I was thinking, what if there isn't another one? This expectation that you're going to have a bull run, it's going to come and this is what I'm going to do. It's kind of stupid. And I knew how much I dropped. And I knew I mustn't have been the only one. And, I was getting private DMs from people because of the show saying, I've lost so much money, or what should I do, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, someone just needs to talk about this. And again, it goes back to that transparency. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Because, I've got memed off it and, people will say stuff like, oh, why are you listening to that idiot who lost $1 million? It's just like, well, I think 90% of people lost money.
Oh, yeah.
And I got so many DMs off the back of it of people. There was one guy who came down from 8 figures to nothing. Like, he had over 10 million. And I was just like, we need to talk about this because people are going to get fucked. So I did it. I regret a couple of things. I regret doing the Guardian article because I just looked like an idiot. And I ended up on Zero Hedge and, just don't go. I went and read the comments. It was brutal. Like I'm glad I did it and I'm glad it helped some people. It did blow up more than I thought. But that's always been my way. Just be honest about shit.
From my experience, I'm in a few private mastermind groups with the top folks in the crypto space and then a couple Bitcoin ones. And I remember everybody was sharing that at the time, and it was all the maybe the chief investment officers of these large funds or CEOs of these large companies, and everybody was talking about it in private, and everybody was like, "Good on Peter for being honest about this. This is really something." And I don't recall ever hearing anybody say anything negative. Maybe people were just trolling you on Twitter saying "Oh, why do you listen to this guy? He lost so much money." But I think for the most part, from where I saw it, it was that's a really good service for the crypto industry, for people to see the risks that's there and for someone to be honest about it. Obviously for Bitcoiners, it helped that you shifted to a more pro Bitcoin stance or Bitcoin only stance at the time.
Yeah, so that's it's another interesting thing. It's when you do a podcast, you get a lot of shit, a lot of judgmental shit. Mostly you should just ignore it. But whenever I interview somebody who's not a Bitcoiner or a shitcoiner, I used to get a lot of shit for it, and it just got relentless. And this whole thing kicked off about the Ryzen interview, which, by the way, I'm still glad I did. I think that was useful. Whether people like him or not, I think it was useful.
I think he's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
He's a really smart dude.
But he's just a bit of a bullshitter as well.
Oh, he's got an agenda, obviously. So he's going to, just like anybody, he's going to be trying to steer the narrative towards what he's working on.
But I got so much shit for it, and I was just like, oh, this is really painful. I still want to do the interviews I want to do, but and I was trying to analyze, why am I getting so much shit for this? And I was just like, do you know what? It's such a distraction from what I want to do. I actually want to go beyond Bitcoin. I want to cover human rights and censorship and stuff like that. I just don't need to get into these constant debates about guests. So I was definitely led a bit by the shit I was getting. Then it turned out to be the best decision I could have made. It's actually allowed me to really focus on Bitcoin and objectively see that, majority, if not all of these shitcoins are a distraction. So I'm glad I did it.
Well, it was the right time because since you made that post, like over the last year and a half, majority of the altcoins have just bled into Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally.
So it was, even though maybe you lost some money on like everybody who was trading altcoins for the most part after the January 2018 top of the bubble, pretty much everything has gone down except for a few outliers here and there that have got some significant gains or maybe a little bit of gains, but everybody's mostly wrecked from altcoins.
And I think everyone's kind of a lot of people in real denial with this kind of hopium that something's going to be used. But most of them, you can just turn around and say, well, are you using it? And they're not. No one's using it. These tokens for using things, it's just fucking nonsense. I can't give a really good technical explanation. I wouldn't get into debate about it. I'd rather defer it to somebody else. I just come from the point of how many different blockchains are there? How many different projects? How many tokens? And then how many do I actually want to use or need to use? And it's zero. Whereas with Bitcoin, I'm using it, right? I'm like, it has a purpose to me. And then I look at something like Ethereum, I'm like, just seems really complicated what they're trying to do. And the more complicated it feels like the more it becomes centralized. And therefore, if it becomes centralized, well, what's the point of having a blockchain? You might as well just have a database.
Well, if you want to get Rodolfo Novak on your show, you just got to start with that. You'll love that. I had Rodolfo. He was the second person I had on my show. And we had a kind of a long discussion about Ethereum because I like to play devil's advocate on both sides of it. I'm like a Bitcoin maximalist, but I really think of myself as a Bitcoin maximalish, I don't think all coins are scams, but I made the wrong decision with Ethereum, I think. I got rid of all my Ethereum after the DAO hack, thinking that blockchains are supposed to be decentralized, blockchains are supposed to be immutable, and when the DAO hack happened, it proved that there's a centralized controller there, and they're just the sort of moral, philosophical reason of having a blockchain is that immutability, and they just broke it. So no one's going to find that valuable. Dropped to $10 from 20, and then now it's, even now it's up 15x from there, and it was up 100x at one point. So there's obviously a giant section of the market that doesn't even care about decentralization. And that's what I struggle with, trying to find what my investment thesis on altcoins and if something can flip in Bitcoin. It's like, does the market at large even care about decentralization as much as we do?
I just don't think they do. I think people care about privacy and they care about potentially having things that can't get switched off in certain places, but not as much as people think. I've been taking a look at this Blockstack thing because I'm like, people talk about the guy running that really well. He seems like a cool guy. I spoke to him on Twitter a couple of times. They've got an event coming up. There's a lot of people going to it. I'm like, okay, what is this? Why is it interesting? And there's certainly seen something interesting there. But then when I dive in, I'm like, well, what's the point of the token? Why do you need a token? And then I've gone into it and there's one's like a decentralized bookmarks app. And I'm like, okay, so if I buy into this, do I essentially have this dual internet experience, right? I have my normal internet experience and I have my decentralized Blockstack one. Okay, if I have that, why? And then how many people are actually going to actually use that? Can that hit mainstream? I don't think so. I just don't think we're living in the real world with this stuff. I think it's utopian ideas that won't come to fruition.
Yeah, especially with all the pressure from the regulators that, you got the CFTC that regulates things as commodities, and the FINRA regulates things as money, and the SEC regulates things as securities. And you got all these regulators circling the drain, waiting to fine or put restrictions on it. And now in the UK, did you see the recent thing about how they're considering putting a provision in to say that writing code is now possibly going to be regulated under the financial rules?
Yeah, so I've not got too much into that. I know up in Wyoming, they're actually trying to prevent that. I'm pretty sure it's up in Wyoming they're trying to prevent that. But yeah, it's just fucking nonsense.
Yeah, I think they passed that. They passed that in Wyoming. They've got all that crazy, awesome pro-crypto law. I can't wait to talk to Caitlin Long about all the stuff they're doing up there. I have so many questions because it doesn't make sense completely to me, but she's the one that will be able to answer all those questions for sure.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Domiciling your Bitcoin in Wyoming while not actually having it be there, how does that even make sense? And why would I want to do that? And, if I don't do that, what could happen to me? Those are the kind of interesting things I want to learn about.
Yeah, so she's amazing, and everything they're trying to do up there is really cool. It's really impressive. They are definitely on the libertarian side of things, trying to create less government, deregulate markets. I really admire, and I had a great experience up there. I think they're doing some cool things, but I don't know, man. This whole crypto market is it's just weird. I'm going to like the Crypto Invest Summit, and there's all these companies there. I'm like, none of you are going to exist in 5 years, maybe 2 years, maybe even a year. Like, none of you, I'm going to go and talk about Bitcoin, but everything else, I'm just going to be like, this is fucking nonsense.
We're kind of like saturated with, I feel, crypto funds and people who got lucky on Ethereum and maybe one or two other coins that started funds. And then you've got like the Algorand fund that just lost millions of dollars. The CTO had millions of dollars on a hot wallet on his phone. He got SIM swapped. I mean, that doesn't happen to a real Bitcoiner, like a real knowledgeable Bitcoiner that's worried about OPSEC. You don't hear about a Bitcoin CTO like Jameson Lopp or somebody like that getting SIM swapped and losing millions of dollars on his phone. I don't know if it's just that as people learn about crypto and altcoins and they kind of just realize Bitcoin is the most decentralized one. Like Bitcoin is like the black hole and the gravity there is so strong that people get sucked to Bitcoin, and all the opportunists and all the business people and the marketers and stuff like that are kind of excited about cryptocurrency and think I can maybe make more money with altcoins. They're at first drawn to the bright lights of altcoins, but over time, as they either lose money or get hacked or see the price go down of their coins and like learn about the value properties of Bitcoin, they, for the most part, seem to migrate to Bitcoin. Like even the shitcoin CEO, the altcoin fund managers and Silicon Valley VCs, anecdotally, I hear that they all just hold Bitcoin while they're investing in Ethereum startups. So for their personal portfolios, they're holding Bitcoin, but they're investing in all these ETH ecosystem projects.
Most of the time, I just think, what's even the point of getting involved in the conversations? It's not something I'm going to buy. It's not something I'm interested in. Even trolling, I'm just trolling it less now. I'm just like, I can't be bothered.
It's not as interesting, especially in the bear market. I think if there ever is another altcoin bull run, the Bitcoin immune system will sort of have to reactivate and everybody will start trolling the altcoins again, and altcoiners will start trolling Bitcoiners again, and then the conversation will get more inflamed. But for now, it seems like Bitcoin is clearly winning, and even like Bitcoin Cash is kind of like failing as a value proposition of what it was created to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing worth investing in is Bitcoin. Everything else is just you're going for chance and luck and hoping of some kind of whale pumping something for you at the right time. There's no value being created.
I mean, there's some really smart people that have seemingly decent investment thesi. Is that how you say it?
I don't know. Is that even a word? It sounds like
thesis?
It sounds like how it should be plural. A thesis.
The plural of thesis must be thesi. Theses. I hear good arguments. That's all I can say. I hear good arguments for some of the altcoins, but for sure, 99% of altcoins are just me too on a blockchain. Look, mom, I got a blockchain. It's useless. And it's just a way to grab money and try to make something that is, like you said, like a utopian token for a bookmark. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, token for XYZ industry. It's ridiculous. And the market seems to have clearly proven that out, but we'll see. Time will tell in 2 years or so if alt season really does happen again and the fear and greed takes over again. The market was really run on FOMOnomics. It wasn't run on fundamental value. The reason why all those altcoins were going up, it was just fear. It was greed. Greed was just running everything, and it was just bubble.
Crazy world, man. So anyway, fuck all that shit. So what's going on with your podcast, man? Tell me what's going on with it.
I need to just focus more on the podcast, I think. I need to just kind of like subscribe to all your tweets and try to replicate whatever you're doing, because you just have a really strong hard work ethic. You're constantly at conferences. You're having really good guests on. You're pushing guests out constantly. And I think if I want to have a successful podcast, I just have to bite the bullet there and put the work in. That just seems like what needs to happen. I can't be getting distracted by altcoins and portfolios and all this stuff. I got to focus on getting more guests out and having conversations.
Yeah, dude, man, you just gotta keep pushing it. You gotta work on your brand. You gotta get to the right people. You gotta be patient, man.
When you first started your podcast, you said you did it for fun. Were you talking more about crypto, or were you talking about Bitcoin back then too? Or what was your podcast like back then?
So the original idea was it was going to be about trading, the first couple of shows, and then I did the Jameson Lot one. I was like, no, I want to do more broad Bitcoin. And then I did the Lynn Ulbricht one, which was like show 10 or 12, and I was like, no, I want to do like broad interest stories. I've just kind of found my path and realized I wanted to do other stuff. And there's never been like a plan. It's just reacting to stuff.
Okay, so for some reason I had it in my mind that you had started your podcast like a long time ago, but it really hasn't been that long ago. Then, I
November
suppose.
17. I'm coming up to, next month will be 2 years.
Okay. And about, what, 6 months in, you decided you're going to treat it like a job?
No, it was about a year in. It was August 18. So it was about, August of last year. About a year ago, I started taking it a lot more serious.
And at the beginning, were you doing things like marketing, creating like clips to put up on Twitter and stuff, or were you just kind of pushing them out and letting people find it themselves?
Yeah, I was doing all kinds of stuff. Like I was trying to be noisy trying to get a presence on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was effective, some of it was stupidity. I was trying to write stuff for Medium. I was just trying lots of different tactics, but the most effective thing I always found was just have a presence on Twitter, but not to argue, actually. Just have good takes and have good conversations. I really fight with not trolling and just doing silly stuff because it's totally unprofessional. But once you get into good conversations, that's the way to do it.
Your picture was interesting because you had your profile picture as you holding a guitar and you were standing in front of like a palm tree. And I always thought that palm tree was a mohawk. So it looked like you had a big giant mohawk on your Twitter profile. Like, oh, this guy's like some hardcore rocker guy. But you actually like did play in a band, right?
No, never. I was once in I was once in a hip hop band for a couple of weeks.
Do you play guitar, or were you just holding it?
No, dude. If you actually go back to the photo, the guitar's actually upside down. It's a left-handed one.
Oh, okay. You have all the tattoos, though. I mean, you look like you could be a lead guitarist in a rock band.
I never learned any instrument. I can't sing.
Okay, you had your podcast. You were treating it kind of like something, I guess you just wanted to do it. It was something you wanted to do. It wasn't a job at the beginning. About a year in, you decided to focus more on it. And then now you're hiring your first full-time employee. The guy's been helping you for a while.
Yep.
You do all the marketing yourself?
Yeah, I do. I do all the design work myself. I have somebody who occasionally chips in and just like fixes some basic design errors, but I do it all myself. I want to grow a media company, so hopefully I'll get somebody to run marketing for me and I will get someone to run admin, and hopefully the thing I think I'm good at is like doing the deals, the advertising deals and getting the guests, and that's what I'd like to focus on.
Have you leveraged your community yet, like the followers and people on your Patreon, to maybe help you like promote the show or create their own clips of favorite segments of your show that they can share and you can share? Or
no, I haven't actually, but people just tend to do it anyway. I get lots of offers for help. Can I work for you? I'll do it for free. But they end up, it just becomes somebody you manage. And I don't like having people work for free because I always think the incentive model's wrong. I want people paid. I'd rather pay, because when you're paying someone, you've got recourse if they don't do a good enough job. And, people shouldn't work for free really, unless they're like 20 and 18 trying to get some work experience. Now it's, it is a company, it's a business, and that's what I'm shaping.
How many of your guests would you say made up for some of your growth? Do you think there was like a top like 1% of the guests you had on the show gave you big bumps in numbers, or just generally pushing lots of content?
Say you got a massive guest, you get a big bump. It's just going to dip after that anyway, right? Because what you're trying to create is loyal listeners, and that takes time. All the podcasters I know always say it's just play the long game, create good content, be consistent, and be patient. You look at my graph, it goes up, but there's very few big spikes in it.
Yeah, it's like when someone goes viral on Twitter for some meme they tweeted or something, and you look at their profile and they have 2,000 followers, a million retweets, 2,000 followers. You don't want to go after the viral one-time hit. You want to go after the long sustained, lots of guests, lots of quality content.
Consider it like a coffee shop. Like you have a coffee shop, you got to do a good job, create good coffee, treat people well, and they'll come once and they'll maybe come again. For example, like if you got a huge guest, I don't know, say you got some amazing, say I got Ross Ulbricht for some reason, I'll get a huge spike there, but a lot of those people won't come back. It's just consistent. You hope somebody listens to the show and likes it and want to keep coming back, but you just got to be consistent.
So speaking of Ross Ulbricht, you mentioned that one of your earliest podcast episodes was with his mom. Did you follow that story before, or was that kind of your introduction to that story?
So I followed the story before because that was the first time I discovered Bitcoin, was buying drugs in 2013.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was your intro story.
Yeah, and I always wanted to interview Ross, but that's close to impossible. So I just reached out to Lynn. I was like, "Look, would you mind coming on the show and talking about Ross?" And she was like, "Fine." I said, "I'll be in Austin." So we met up, and it turns out we actually did it on Ross's birthday. It was like this weird thing. She just turned up, and she was like, "Yeah, it's Ross's birthday today." I was like, "Wow."
Oh, wow.
That interview was very different from any of the ones previously because I prepared a lot for it. It's a very personal story, and it made me realize that's the work I really want to do.
You had first heard about Bitcoin like 2013 or 14, was it?
Yeah, 2013.
You had to get some sort of drugs for your mom, like for pain or something, was it?
No, that was the second time. So 2013, was buying drugs on Silk Road, then started trading Bitcoin CFDs, made and lost a lot of money very quickly, and then just forgot about it. And then 2016, when my mum got sick and we wanted to get her cannabis oil, and I was like, well, Dad, remember I had that drug problem? He's like, yeah. I said, well, this is how you buy it. So we bought some Bitcoin, went on Coinbase, bought some Bitcoin, bought some cannabis oil for my mum. Sadly, she passed away, but I just went back down the Bitcoin rabbit hole then and never left.
What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think, I mean, there's a lot of people that have signed the petition. Do you think there's any chance that he's going to get pardoned?
No. In the future, yeah. The reality of it is I don't think you'll ever get a pardon this soon, but I think what's going to happen is society is going to continue to fundamentally change over the next few years with regards to, now got 47 US states where cannabis is decriminalized or legal, and we've got MDMA being tested for treating PTSD. We've got psychedelic changes to mushroom laws and psychedelics. I think in like 20 years, we're going to look back and go, wow, all this stuff was illegal? Well, that's stupid. And then somebody like Ross being in prison is just not going to make any sense. I expect prison reform as well. It's like, you've got to look at someone like Ross. If he comes out, he's not going to commit another crime. He's only going to add to society. It's not like somebody who's like a rapist who you're worried is going to come out and rape again, or a murderer or a career criminal. This is a guy who did one thing. He will come out and he will most likely be an advocate for good. So what's the point in spending $40,000 of taxpayers' money every year, or whatever it is, $100,000 every year, keeping him incarcerated? It doesn't make sense for anyone. It's completely illogical. But they're going to keep campaigning. They fully have my support. So yeah, we'll have to see.
So for people who are listening to this that maybe don't know a little bit about that story, like Ross Ulbricht was it proven that he created? Did he admit to creating it initially, or did he say he didn't create it? I think the story was that he admitted to creating it, but then handed it off pretty early on.
That's what he says. He says there were multiple Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah, the Dread Pirate Roberts. So he created this market, this online website on the dark market that allowed people to buy and sell drugs in a non-violent way, or anything. There was a reputation system, and they kind of moderated. Like, I think they would delete content that was really, morally on the dark scales. But for the most part, he just created this website that allowed people to get together and buy and sell whatever they wanted. And that was a threat. And I remember just recently seeing Kyle Bass from Real Vision, because Raoul Paul has been going on all the Bitcoin podcasts, and he's from Real Vision. And then Kyle Bass is another one of the Real Vision guys. And Kyle Bass just recently tweeted that he was like congratulating his friend who just got, head of the Andreessen Horowitz crypto fund or whatever. And it actually turns out it was the head prosecutor of the Ross Ulbricht's Silk Road case. And I mean, there's a lot of people in the crypto space that are celebrating this and being like, oh, congratulations or whatever, not even realizing that she's the one that kind of is responsible for Ross being in jail. And she admits in the interview with Kyle that her boss basically told her, we're going after Bitcoin. So they quickly realized that they couldn't go after Bitcoin because it was decentralized. So they were just trying to go after Bitcoin businesses. This was like 2013 or whatever. She had the mandate from, the brass above that they just had to go after Bitcoin politically, and they couldn't go after Bitcoin. So they went after Silk Road and like Charlie Shrem and all these businesses that were doing Bitcoin stuff. Anyway, the story goes on. But if people want to get a good take on it, listen to your podcast with Lynn, Ross's mom, and watch that Railroaded documentary. It's pretty amazing what happened there.
I think Lynn Ulbricht is an absolute hero. I think everything she is doing, she's like, I don't think actually a lot of people really know how much she's sacrificed, not only for Ross, but actually for prison reform now. It's become like a mission for her, for prison reform. I look at all that other stuff. And I'm like, yeah. But I always just focus on Lynn and think, what an amazing human.
She's working now for, just in general, like nonviolent crime prison reform.
Yeah, she campaigns for Ross and campaigns for that as well. It's pretty amazing stuff, really.
I mean, those stats are insane if you look at the
bro.
amount of prisoners in the U.S. for nonviolent drug crimes, like possession of marijuana.
The problem you've got is if they start taking these people out of jail, you're going to have whole towns decimated because the prison is the main industry.
Right, yeah. Privatized prisons that profit on prisoners.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So people want to find you, it's at What Bitcoin Did on Twitter?
Just go to me, at Peter McCormack.
That's Peter McCormack, and it's MC, not MAC.
Yeah, MC, the Irish way.
And obviously listen to the podcast, What Bitcoin Did. You've got a lot of great guests on there. And thanks again, Peter, for having me on my show.
All right, man. Thank you. Take care, buddy. Anything you need, just give me a shout.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.